What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. The Denver Broncos lose to the Washington Commanders 35-33 in an absolute heartbreaker. The Broncos have lost many different ways over the last 8 seasons since they last won their Super Bowl, but today was a way all on its own. The Broncos at one point in this game in the second quarter, they were up 21-3. 21-3, and yet they ended up being down 28-24 after basically Washington goes on a 32-3 run. 32-3 run. They were up 35-24 after the Broncos were up 21-3, and it was just one of the toughest losses that you've seen from the Denver Broncos in recent years. And the game started off so well. The offense was crisp. Marvin Mims was getting down the field. Russell Wilson had a 60-yard moon ball for a TD. And the game looked like it was going to be in hand. But then here we go yet again. The Denver Broncos are just not able to put together their performance on both ends of the ball. And namely, it starts off with their defense. The Denver Broncos defense today, they gave up 121 rushing yards. They gave up 267 passing yards for a total of 388. The Broncos defense gave up 26 first downs as well. And they also gave up the fourth down opportunity and try for the Washington Commanders as well. Now, they did have 4 sacks today, but it just wasn't good enough, man. Again, they were up 21-3, and at one point in time, the defense just started folding. Vance Joseph and the defense started folding, and they could not stop the Commanders at all. At all. I mean, Sam Howell goes for 27-39 for 299 and 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson rushes for 87 yards, 4.8 yards a carry for 2 TDs. Sam Howell averages 6.5 yards a carry. Curtis Samuel, one carry for 13 yards. And then on top of that, you had Antonio Gibson, 2 for 8, who had 4 yards a carry. Terry McLaurin had a ball on that he caught on Damari Mathis, and Damari Mathis yet again is just showing that he is just not ready yet. And it's just clear as day. I don't know how else to say it. He's just not ready for prime time. He has 3 touchdowns that have been scored on him so far in the first 2 weeks of the season. Teams are obviously staying away from Patrick Surtain II, and they're targeting Damari, and it's working. It's working. Terry McLaurin beat him inside on a post route. Turner Yell was there because Kareem Jackson gets ejected for a head-to-head hit that he got thrown out of the game for against Logan Thomas, and that was a touchdown that put them back in the game and put the game basically at 21-11 in the second quarter. And really after that, it was all the Commanders. Everything led to the Commanders. Everything about the game led to the Commanders. They just absolutely did it. They took over everything. And, yeah, it's just a really frustrating game. If you are a Denver Broncos fan, really frustrating game. You had an opportunity to secure a win versus the Raiders, didn't do it. Had an opportunity to secure a win versus the Commanders, didn't do it. And both times your defenses let you down. The defense has not been good to start the year. They cannot stop the pass. They're not getting home enough. And they're also not creating enough adversity for the offense. And the offense is not having enough issue trying to score on them. Just all across the board, the defense hasn't been good enough. Now, they only gave up 17 points last game. But again, remember, Jimmy Garoppolo was basically throwing it where he wanted to throw it. Mathis was getting beat inside by Jacoby Myers. And then today, Terry McLaurin is beating him. It is it's a really dark time. And again, if you're a Denver Broncos fan, you've been sitting in this situation for the last several seasons. Now, I say the last 8 seasons because 2016 they missed the playoff. They were 9-7. But after that, they haven't had a winning record. They've had a losing record. A losing record in every season following that. A losing record in every season following that. Like, it's been abysmal. They just have not had the offensive flow, the defensive flow. They haven't had the cohesion. Last year, the Broncos were 5-12. The year before, they were 7-10. The year before, they were 5-11. The year before, they were 7-9. The year before that, they were 6-10. And the year before that, they were 5-11. The most games they've won is 7. And they're 0-2 already to start the year off. They're 0-2 already to start the year off. This is the longest drought a team has gone on with winning a Super Bowl and not making the playoffs. It's been abysmal. It's been horrible. And I think it's just about time to have that conversation, y'all. This is just not the team. It's just not. They're not good enough. And I don't think it's going to help trying to assuage people to make them think that they are. Marvin Mims, 2 kept receptions for 113 yards and a TD. Brandon Johnson, 2 for 66. Jerry, first game back, 3 for 25. Not enough production. Not enough production. Cortland Sutton, 5 for 66. But they're not explosive enough. They're not dynamic enough at the tight end position, at the receiver position. The running backs today, Javonte, again, the line was getting bottled up, but 12 carries for 44 yards. Jaleel, 1 carry for 5 yards in the TD. Samaji, 1 carry for 4 yards. Russell Wilson, again, led the Broncos in rushing, 7 for 56. Now, Russell did have 18 for 32 for 3 TDs and 1 INT. So he played fairly well. He really did. But, again, it's just not enough. Fairly well doesn't cut it. He missed some opportune throws. There was a wide open opportunity on the 3rd down to Jerry Jeudy. He cut it short. Jerry falls on the ground, doesn't get the 1st down. There's just too much. Taking sacks that didn't need to be taken. Sean Payton, at the end of the game, the Broncos were in a position with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left. They basically got in the red zone, and they could have went and tried to go for a touchdown within that 50-second period before the 2-minute warning. But they were going at snail's pace. And they end up having to bypass not just the 2-minute warning, but then they also called a timeout when Russell Wilson gets sacked on the 3rd down. So they call a timeout, and then next thing you know, they kick a field goal. They don't get the onside kick. They get the ball back, and then they thankfully were able to get a Hail Mary. But again, like the idea that you somehow wouldn't have, like, it's just even calling the timeout to get your field goal unit on the field feels so remedial. The Broncos just don't have it. Whatever that is, they don't have it. And I think it's just okay to just go out and say that the defense, quite simply, y'all, is not good enough. The offensive pieces are not good enough. They're not. Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, Alexander Singleton, Josie Jewell, maybe. If you want to put Randy Gregory in there, fine. But outside of that, DJ Jones didn't show up today. Zach Allen didn't show up today. Cooper, now, he played well today. Cooper did play well today. Jonathan Cooper had 2 sacks today. Randy Gregory had 1. Nick Bonito had 1. But again, the run stopping, it just wasn't there. It wasn't there. 121 yards allowed rushing. It's not good enough. So the team just isn't good enough. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, Patrick Surtain, really the only bad play he had was where he kind of somewhat wrapped Terry McLaurin on a stop route. But that's it. And then he gave up 2 short catches in the boundary at one point in time on back-to-back possessions. But that was it. But you don't have enough elite talent. 49ers, the Eagles, the Chiefs even. You just don't have it. And at this point, I'm of the mindset they really just need to tank. And the reason I say that is you had the Commanders and Raiders to start the season off. And these were going to be 2 of your easier opponents that you were going to have this season. And you still weren't able to get the job done. Now you're in a situation, you're getting to the meat of your schedule. You play the Dolphins next. After that, you play the Bears, not a good team. You play the Jets without Zach Wilson, but with a very good defense. Then you play the Chiefs. Then you play the Packers. Then you play the Chiefs again. So you play the Jets, and then you play the Chiefs. Looks like on Thursday Night Football as well. So then you play the Packers, you play the Chiefs on October 29th, you play the Bills, then you play the Vikings, you play the Browns, you play the Texans, the Chargers, the Lions, the Patriots, the Chargers, and then the Raiders again. You tell me, which of those games do you feel most comfortable with? They're just going to be in dogfights. And the question you have to ask yourself is, do they have enough to really be able to secure wins versus the Dolphins, versus the Jets, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Vikings, the Browns, the Lions, and then the Chargers, and then the Patriots? Like, we're going to continue to go back in circles just because the team is just not able to get stops when it needs to score when it needs to. And even if Russell's having a better year this year, which he is, Everything is still so discombobulated, and they can't do it consistently enough. You managed to lose a game. You were up 21-3 because the defense just sucked. And then on top of that, the offense stalled out at the bottom, basically from the last half of the second quarter through the first part of the third quarter, really through the entire third quarter. The offense just stalled out. And you gave up a 32-3 run to Sam Howell. It's just not good enough. And I think that at some point in time, we have to come to grips with the fact that is where they are. Now, again, listen to these numbers. Russell Wilson, to start this year off, he had a 108.5 passer rating with 486 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a pick. Like, that's really good. He's playing good. The problem is the Broncos are not good enough around him. They're not. The offensive line, Mike McGlinchey was getting his butt kicked today and got his butt kicked last week versus Crosby. Mac Crosby obliterated Mike McGlinchey. This week, Payne obliterated Mike McGlinchey. Chase Young obliterated Mike McGlinchey. Not good enough. I think Russell Wilson was sacked 6 times today, and he would hit 13 times. Not good enough. We can't keep having these discussions about not being good enough and getting the job done versus mid-level NFL teams, which is the Raiders and the Commanders, which makes you even worse than that. So I'm honestly past the point of frustration because they should have closed this game out, and I was feeling really good about it, as were many of you. But for them not to close it out also shows where they are. This is just who they are right now. So it is what it is. Not a great feeling. They lose 35-33. They got the Dolphins coming up next, y'all. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section. How are you disappointed? How much does this matter to you? All that, y'all. Hey, Swiper Gang, shout out to Mile High Sports. Hey, I got a great announcement coming out tomorrow, by the way, y'all. We are building. The Broncos is losing, but we, Swiper Gang, we winning. So we coming up, y'all. Hey, I'll see y'all on the other side.